I work on a suicide hotline, AMA. Do you ever get annoyed with callers? If so, how do you deal with that? I ask, because I was profoundly lonely and depressed, and often quite drunk. My first 2 years of college, the internet and cell phones weren't really much of a thing back then, but I just dialed 1-800-SUICIDE to see what would happen. I don't know for sure I technically qualified as suicidal, but I was in deep pain, and in enough of a state to even attempt such a call. I called maybe 4 times. The first 3 were exceptionally kind and reassuring. The 4th time, I felt like the person was just annoyed with me. I stopped calling after that, but I'm still around 25 years later. I'm so sorry you had an experience that was unkind. Honestly, for anyone reading this, I'll be honest and say, some of my coworkers are very stuck to scripts and can be unkind. If that is the case, honestly just leave the conversation and call back to get someone nicer, because how you feel is worth it. I don't get annoyed, even with pranks. I try to at least laugh and tell them that they can call back anytime they really need it. At least leaving a good impression lets them know we care. Wait, you get prank calls? You'd be surprised how many people use suicide hotlines for sexual gratification, or the kids who just text swear words and racial slurs and think they are so cool. How do you deal or handle with the trauma from taking these calls? I have my own therapist who I see weekly. I meditate every day and practice gratitude. I exercise and spend time outside. I focus on remembering that I did the best I could, no matter what happened in the end. Personal faith in relationships can be helpful too. Thank you for explaining all that. It's really insightful. I want to get into a similar line of work eventually, and I knew having your own therapist is an important factor, but just wondered what else one does to help. Just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do. I had my own attempt a while back, and when it happened, someone called a hotline and put them on speaker. Their voice still echoes in me today, and when I see myself going to that dark place, I can hear their voice in my head reassuring me. I'm more than sure you've had a similar impact on many people as well. You do an insanely tough job, and there's no amount of thanks I can give to show my gratitude, but I hope you hear it. And please do keep taking care of yourself. Thank you so much for sharing. You are totally worth it, and you matter. Has anybody taken their own life while on a call? I've had someone tell me they are holding a gun to their head and ask for a reason to live, then have the call disconnect. I've had people standing on bridges. I've had people who were overdosed on pills while talking or actively attempting to kill themselves. Our protocol is to stay with them until our supervisor tells us to end the call, which normally happens once police have arrived. I cannot know for sure, but most likely yes. How do you sleep at night? I could never imagine being in your situation. It has really been a learning curve and changed how I live. Learning to separate work from life is really important. Self-care is super valuable too, and having a routine that allows me breaks and time to care for my needs. If I didn't do that, I would not be able to live, knowing the things I have heard. I'm sorry, and probably I am insensitive. The guy with the gun, did you have the chance to say anything at all? Yes, but they disconnected after my message. Hey. Some people already make their minds when they call you and just want to hear someone. There's nothing you could have said to them that would change the outcome. That's a really great point and so true. I've had people say that to me before, that they just wanted someone with them as they die. I want to join 988. Recently delayed my death until I was willing to seek other help. 988 is a great platform. Glad to hear they were able to delay your death. If you go on their website, you'll find some great ways to volunteer or help out. I just want to say thank you. I called the crisis hotline after my dad died, and that helped me navigate through my first panic attack. That conversation led me to therapy, which I attend weekly now. Regardless of whether you are religious or not, I think you're doing God's work. Inasmuch as God is love, and your work is an act of care and love for your fellow humans, what a beautiful way to dedicate your time. Thank you. This really made me smile. So glad you're in therapy now. When someone is in the process of ending their life or an attempt is imminent, do you call the police without their permission? Great question. I find a lot of people are anxious about this when calling hotlines. Let me break it down for you. We will assess if you are having suicidal thoughts and if you have done anything to hurt yourself. If you tell us you are suicidal, we do not instantly call police. That is a last resort. We call once we know that you are going to kill yourself in the next 48 hours and you refuse to come up with a safety plan or refuse help. We would also call in situations that involve abuse of a minor or a vulnerable adult. So yes, if someone is actively attempting suicide and their life is in danger, we call the police. If we were going to call the police, we would always tell you. Do you think this will prevent some people from reaching out? I'm imagining a situation where someone is uncertain about whether they want to end their life, and they don't wish that option to be taken away from them. They may be reluctant to call, fearing you'll call the police. That's a super good point to make. If someone states they are unsure, we would not be calling the police. In my opinion, most people texting or calling hotlines do not want police interfering, and they do not require that, honestly. The number of reports I've actually made is probably less than 2% of every call I have ever taken. It is really rare, like super duper rare. Also, it's really easy to lie to us. You can make up a safety plan, and we would never know. The truth is, if someone wants to die, they can do that, and we cannot stop them. I see texting in as the little bit of hope inside of someone, or that desire to not be alone as they go through this incredibly painful moment. We aren't robots who just hit the police button. It would take you telling us, no, I do not want to brainstorm coping strategies. No matter what you tell me, I'm doing it right now. You would have to actually deny all of our help, and not be willing to work towards any sort of safety plan, like separating from something you were using to cut yourself with or stop taking pills, etc. To anyone feeling worried about texting or calling, I promise we do care, and you don't have to be afraid. How much has traffic increased since the election? It is insane. I've never seen it this. A line that would normally be empty during the middle of the day is in the hundreds. It was like that the first few days, but is settling down a lot now. Have you ever used the service yourself? 3 times in the last week. It's been hard lately, but it helps. What is the most depressing call you've ever gotten? Child suicide. I took almost a year off after that call, and it destroyed me. How did you know it was a child? They told me their age. It was a situation that required police intervention, and also a call for child abuse. I collected all of their personal information, as well as their parents' information and addresses, etc. I was talking to them for over 3 hours, so I learned a lot. It resulted with them trying to commit suicide. They were 8. When working the texting hotline, are you instructed to drag it out as long as possible? I texted a hotline one time, and was getting kind of frustrated because the person I was texting with was taking 10-15 minutes to respond to each text. But I guess it worked, because it definitely got me out of crisis mode and into annoyed and tired mode. LOL. Oh wow, can I ask which hotline you texted? Over text, we are required to reply in less than 5 minutes. We are instructed to try and keep conversations to 45-60 minutes, unless they need to go longer or shorter for some other reason. Very interesting. How do you contact police and still keep the caller on the phone talking? Most of my current work is over texting hotlines. Contacting police is a last resort, only if someone refuses to make a safety plan or is in danger, and by the time we make that call, my supervisor would have reviewed the conversation and made the report themselves, and it is the same over the phone, I believe. Our supervisors are very closely watching the conversations and can help us with what to say in certain situations. What is a safety plan? A way for you to not kill yourself or hurt yourself. It's made of coping strategies, maybe taking a cold shower, listening to music, watching TV, etc. Courses of support, people in your life to reach out to, therapy, etc. Buffers, reasons to stay like people you love or hopes for the future, and other resources we can provide you with. Last year I called the 988 number several times, and I wouldn't be here without it. Thanks for your service. That makes me happy to hear. Thank you for being here. Does anyone ever call just to talk? Are you allowed to continue the conversation if so? Yes, totally. I always continue because often people are just very lonely, or they are young kids struggling at home. There are also warm lines in the US, which are like a hotline, but for non-crisis stuff. If you just want to talk to someone, I normally recommend those. What makes you do this, especially with the mental toll it's taking on you? I was once on the other side, and the people are worth it. I am really good at staying calm under pressure, which is not something everyone can do. As hard as it is, the feeling when someone tells you that you saved their life, fixes it all, or when a child tells you that you are the first person who ever said they were strong, it's all worth it. If someone calls, does it get reported to authorities? Like, will it affect applying for jobs in the future? Thanks for what you do. Not at all. Calls are anonymous and not shared with anyone unless you are in a situation where we need to call the police, but that knowledge would not affect applying for jobs or school or anything. How many calls do you get from the LGBTQ community? Honestly, not as much as I thought before I got the job. I think it is because there are separate resources in the US advertised as LGBTQ hotlines or communities, so most people go via them. It definitely does come up though, and is a common reason for feeling oppressed or being bullied. do you usually say to people who are feeling depressed and having suicidal thoughts, but don't actually want to die or have a suicide plan? I'm sometimes plagued with intrusive suicidal thoughts, and they greatly bother me, but I don't actually want to die, if that makes sense. I've never felt important enough to call. You are important enough. You matter, and you're so worth it. One conversation won't take away the pain, but it shows me how you're trying to make things better. You mentioned how you have suicidal thoughts but not a desire to die. To me, it sounds like you have been suffering for a really long time, and you deserve relief. I'm proud of you for making it this far. Thanks for this. Have you seen an uptick in the last week? Definitely. My supervisor sent me multiple emails asking me to log on for extra shifts. Botta.